The moment I saw the France vacation photos, my hands went numb. I'd just wired $60,000 for my sister's tuition. And there they were, my parents, smiling under the Eiffel Tower like they'd won the lottery. My breath hitched, rage mixing with disbelief, a lifetime of quiet sacrifices unraveling in one blinding instant. They'd told me they were struggling to keep the lights on, that Lila's education was a family effort, that I owed it to them because I'd been so blessed. But the truth was gleaming right there in the pixels. New clothes, champagne, sunlight bouncing off their glasses. The same week they'd begged me for help, they were sipping wine in Paris. My laptop trembled under my fingers as I zoomed in, their faces beaming with pride, as if betrayal could be a family tradition passed down like fine china. My mind splintered into old echoes. The years I'd paid their bills, sent rent money, bought groceries when Dad claimed overtime was cut. All those emergencies that somehow never ended. And me, the obedient daughter, always saying yes because saying no felt like a sin. It wasn't the money that broke me. It was the caption under the post. Dreams come true with faith and family. Faith? Family? The words scraped raw across my heart. I stared at that post for so long I forgot to breathe, until the screen blurred into a haze of tears I refused to let fall. I wasn't going to cry, not again. I closed the laptop, pushed away the memory of every night I'd worked past midnight, every skipped meal, every lie I'd swallowed just to keep them comfortable. My parents had always made me feel like I owed them my success, like the purpose of my achievements was to make up for theirs. I used to believe it. Not anymore. Because now I had proof they'd lied, proof they'd used me, proof that love in our family came with a price tag I could no longer afford. I turned toward the window of my downtown Seattle apartment, the skyline painted in gold and blue, and whispered the truth aloud for the first time. They don't love me. They love what I give them. The words tasted bitter, but freeing. For once, I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't open the message from Mom labeled urgent. I just stood there, breathing, feeling the crack in my chest widen into something that almost resembled power. Maybe pain could be useful if you knew how to hold it. When my phone buzzed again, it wasn't Mom. It was Marcus, my co-founder. "Hey, are you okay? You missed the investor call." His voice on voicemail was warm, concerned, real, the kind of care that didn't demand repayment. I sat back at my desk, eyes lingering on the email still open in another. "Tabah!" Mom's guilt-laced words begging for a little help for Lila. Attached was a PDF labeled, Woodward Tuition Plan. I clicked through the pages again, noticing small inconsistencies, outdated tuition figures, a blurred signature line, even a mismatched logo on the letterhead. My stomach tightened. They hadn't even bothered to make the lie convincing. I thought back to every time I'd been told, "You're the only one we can count on," and realized how heavy that sentence really was, how it kept me chained, quietly financing their version of family unity. I needed to see clearly, without emotion clouding judgment, so I did something I'd never done before. I opened my accounting software, not for business, but for them. Line by line, I went through 8 years of transactions labeled Family Support, Mom, Dad, Lila. When the total appeared, my pulse stuttered. $52,114. Half of it during college, when I was living off instant noodles and sleeping 4 hours a night. Every dollar was a reminder of a debt I'd never owed. My reflection in the dark laptop screen didn't look like a victim anymore. It looked like someone who'd finally seen the truth. I poured a glass of water, my hand still trembling, and whispered, "No more." My phone rang again, this time Mom. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times before I answered. "Hannah, sweetheart, did you see my message?" Her voice was all honey, every syllable dripping with practiced sweetness. "I did," I said flatly. "Then you understand how important this is. Lila can't start school without that tuition. We thought you could cover it. You're doing so well, and we're proud of you, honey. You always come through for family." I closed my eyes, listening to the manipulation wrapped in affection. "When did you go to France, Mom?" The silence was immediate and sharp. "What?" "The photos," I said. "The ones you posted." The Eiffel Tower, the hotel, the champagne. Her breath hitched. Oh, that. That was months ago. A gift from friends. Really? I said, calm as still water. Because the post was dated last week. Another pause. Don't twist things, Hannah. You're being ungrateful. Ungrateful. The word that had followed me since childhood. The one they used whenever I wanted something for myself. I could almost see her face. The tight smile, the raised brow, the way she'd tilt her head when she wanted to make me feel small. I'm not twisting anything, I said softly. I'm just done pretending. She gasped, as if I'd said something obscene. Excuse me? You heard me. I ended the call before she could respond, before the guilt could seep back in. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the sheer relief of cutting the cord. Minutes later, a new message popped up. Dad this time. Your mother's upset. We'll talk about your attitude at the family dinner Sunday. Don't embarrass us. I stared at the words, the arrogance, the assumption that I'd still show up. They didn't know it yet, but the version of me they controlled was gone. I opened my email and began typing, my fingers flying across the keyboard. Dear Mom and Dad, I will not be attending Sunday dinner. I will handle Lila's tuition myself, directly. That way there's no confusion. I hit send before doubt could whisper otherwise. The next few hours were a blur of silence and adrenaline. For the first time in years, my apartment felt like mine. The walls didn't echo with guilt. I turned off my phone, poured another drink, and watched the city lights flicker against the rain. Somewhere between anger and exhaustion, I started to smile. They'd built an entire family system on the assumption that I'd never stand up for myself. But I wasn't their foundation anymore. I was my own. The next morning, I called Woodward University. My voice didn't shake when I asked to speak to the bursar's office. I gave Lila's name, her student ID, and said I wanted to pay her tuition directly. The woman on the other end paused, clearly surprised. That's very generous, she said. I'll send you the payment portal link. Just to confirm, tuition only, correct? Yes, I said. Tuition only. As the email arrived, I stared at the bold heading. Educational Payment Authorization. I filled it out, step by step, verifying every detail. When I reached the final confirmation screen, I hesitated. Not out of fear, but out of grief. Because this was the moment I stopped being their provider. I clicked Submit. The screen flashed green. Payment successful. My pulse steadied. It was done. An hour later, the storm hit. Mom called 12 times, each one angrier than the last. Dad texted threats about family unity. Even Lila messaged, confused and apologetic, clearly fed lines by them. But I didn't respond. Instead, I went for a walk in the rain, letting it wash away everything that wasn't mine to carry. The sound of the city was louder than my thoughts, and for the first time that felt like peace. When I got back, a new email waited on my laptop. From my parents, CC'd to half the family. The subject line made my chest tighten. Hannah's betrayal. I clicked it open, scanning through paragraphs of melodrama. Words like ungrateful, selfish, heartless. They'd written an entire manifesto painting me as the villain. At the bottom, a single line from Mom. We don't recognize the daughter you've become. My jaw clenched. Maybe that was the point. Maybe they weren't supposed to recognize me anymore. My phone vibrated again, this time Marcus. Hey, he said when I picked up, his voice calm but firm. You look like someone who hasn't slept. Family drama, I said. It's getting worse. Then maybe it's time to stop explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. His words hit deep, settling somewhere behind my ribs. He didn't know it, but he'd just said the sentence I'd been waiting to hear my whole life. That night, I opened my old photo album, the one I hadn't touched in years. Page after page of family pictures, Lila's recitals, Dad's barbecues, Mom's birthdays. And me, always behind the camera. Always the invisible one. I stared at the final photo, taken on my Stanford graduation day. 3 empty chairs in the front row. I'd kept that photo for years without knowing why. Now I understood. It was proof that even at my proudest moment, they hadn't shown up. And still, I'd kept showing up for them. I closed the album, my chest heavy but clear. Tomorrow there would be consequences. The calls, the messages, the guilt trips. But for tonight, I let myself feel something rare. Peace. I poured another glass of water, set it on the windowsill, and whispered to the reflection staring back at me. This time, they'll see me. Whether they like it or not. But just as I started to believe I could finally move forward, my phone buzzed again, and this time it wasn't my parents. It was Lila. Her message was short. They said you cut us off. Why would you do that? My breath caught. The war had officially begun. When I woke the next morning, the city outside my apartment was drowning in rain, the kind that turns everything gray and reflective, like the sky itself is unsure what to feel. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, where 30 unread messages blinked like warnings. Half of them were from Mom. The other half were from numbers I didn't even recognize. Cousins, aunts, family friends who suddenly cared now that there was gossip in the air. Their words carried the same poison sweetness I'd grown up choking on. Family shouldn't turn its back. Money changes people. Lila's future shouldn't suffer because of your pride. Each message felt like a stone thrown from behind a screen, safe and cruel. I scrolled past them until I reached the last one, from Dad. I'm disappointed, Hannah. You've let success corrupt your heart. My chest tightened, not from guilt anymore, but from the weight of how familiar that line sounded. They'd always known which words to use to make me fold. But this time I wasn't folding. Not anymore. I pulled on a sweater and walked to my desk. The tuition confirmation email still glowed on my laptop screen, proof of my decision. The money was with the university, exactly where it belonged. I whispered the words again under my breath, letting their finality settle. It's done! The phrase felt like an anchor and a release all at once. I opened my email draft to Mom and began typing. Every letter was deliberate. Mom, I've already taken care of Lila's tuition. The payment has been sent directly to the university. Please do not contact me for additional funds. I hope you understand that this isn't about money, it's about boundaries. I hovered over the send button for a long time. Then I hit send. No hesitation, no tears. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing. First once, then again, then a continuous stream of notifications like a swarm. I silenced it and turned toward the window. The city stretched below, its lights blurred through raindrops, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. My reflection looked unfamiliar, stronger, quieter, but also lonelier. The kind of loneliness that comes after choosing yourself over everyone else. A knock sounded at the door. My pulse spiked until I heard a familiar voice. Hannah? It's Marcus. I exhaled, relief loosening my chest. Marcus stood in the doorway holding 2 coffees and that patient half-smile he wore when he was worried about me but didn't want to say it. You missed the investor call, he said softly, stepping inside. I told them you had a family emergency. I laughed bitterly. You could say that. I motioned him in and he handed me the coffee. Your mom again? He asked. I nodded. She wanted $60,000 for Lila's tuition. Turns out she and my dad spent the last year vacationing in France and remodeling their kitchen. His eyebrows shot up. Wait, what? I turned my laptop toward him, showing him the photos I'd found on Facebook. Eiffel Tower selfies, champagne glasses, luxury rentals. They said they couldn't afford anything when I was in college, I said, my voice shaking with old fury. I worked 2 jobs while sending them money, thinking I was helping. Turns out I was funding their dream life. Marcus leaned back, jaw tight. Hannah, that's not just manipulation. That's theft. The word hung in the air, too sharp, too real. I shook my head. I let it happen. I wanted them to love me. Silence filled the space. He didn't argue, didn't pity me. He just nodded, the kind of understanding that feels heavier than words. What are you going to do now? He asked finally. I stared out the window again. I already did it. I paid Lila's tuition directly. I'm done being their ATM. He smiled faintly. That's the Hannah I know. but I could see the worry in his eyes. He'd seen me unravel before. The long nights, the panic calls, the way I'd crumble every time my mother's voice turned sweet enough to sound like love. "You know they won't let this go quietly," he said. "They never do," I nodded. "I'm counting on it." That evening, my prediction came true. My mother's face appeared on my phone screen, her name glowing red like a warning sign. I let it ring. The second time I answered. "Why would you humiliate us like this?" she hissed before I could even speak. "Paying the university directly? Do you realize how that makes your father and me look?" I blinked, stunned. "How it makes you look?" I repeated slowly. "Mom, I just ensured Lila's education is covered." "That's what you asked for." Her voice sharpened. "It's not about the payment, Hannah. It's about trust. Family operates on trust." My hands trembled, but not with fear this time. "No, Mom. Family operates on honesty. And you haven't given me that in a long time." There was a pause on the line. I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven. "You've changed," she said finally, her tone low and dangerous. "You think money makes you better than us." "No," I said quietly. "I think boundaries make me healthier than I've ever been." The silence that followed was colder than any storm. Then in the background, I heard my father's voice, calm, practiced, patronizing. "You're embarrassing yourself, Hannah. After everything we sacrificed for you." Something inside me snapped. "Sacrificed?" I said, my voice rising despite my best effort. "You mean the years I paid your mortgage? The bills I covered while you toured Europe?" Mom gasped, scandalized. "How dare you bring that up? We're your parents." I laughed, a sound more broken than amused. "Exactly. Parents. You were supposed to protect me, not drain me." I hung up before she could answer. My heart was pounding, but for the first time the pounding didn't come from fear. It came from freedom. I spent the next day at the office pretending to focus while my phone buzzed endlessly. Marcus finally took it from my desk and dropped it in his drawer. "Work," he said. "I'll handle any emergencies." I nodded, grateful. By late afternoon, I felt lighter. Almost normal. Then an email popped up on my screen. "Family meeting, Saturday, 6 p.m., attendance required." The sender, Dad. My stomach twisted. Attached was a thread of replies from my aunts and cousins. Some names I hadn't seen in years. And then I saw it. A line from one of my cousins that made my blood run cold. "Has anyone tried guilt? That always worked before." My breath caught. My hands curled into fists. There it was, written proof of what I'd known all along. It wasn't love. It was strategy. Manipulation wrapped in family values. I scrolled further and saw Mom's message at the bottom. "We'll remind her what family means." I closed the laptop so hard the screen flickered. My mind spun, 1,000 memories replaying like film reels. Every birthday forgotten, every favor disguised as duty, every time I'd been called ungrateful for asking for love in return. My therapist's voice echoed faintly in my mind. "You can't heal in the place that keeps breaking you." I didn't plan to attend the meeting. But I also didn't plan to hide. Saturday came faster than I expected. Marcus offered to come with me, but I shook my head. "This is my fight," I said. I drove to my parents' house in silence, the rain tracing ghostly lines down my windshield. The house looked smaller than I remembered, though maybe it was me who'd grown. Inside, the familiar scent of lavender candles and polished wood hit me. The smell of perfection masking decay. Mom opened the door, her smile stretched too wide. "Hannah," she said, voice dripping false warmth. "We're so glad you came." Dad stood behind her, arms crossed, the judge in a courtroom only he believed existed. Around the living room sat half my extended family, their faces arranged in practiced concern. The tension was thick enough to taste. I stood in the doorway, rain still dripping from my coat. "You called a meeting," I said flatly. "So let's meet." Mom's smile faltered. "Sweetheart, we're just worried about you. You've been distant, secretive, independent," I corrected. "Not secretive." Dad cleared his throat. "We just don't understand why you'd do something as disrespectful as paying Lila's tuition behind our backs." I laughed, sharp and humorless. Behind your backs? You asked for the money. I sent it exactly where it needed to go. Aunt Clara chimed in, clutching her pearls. But families should communicate. I cut her off. Funny you say that. No one communicated with me when Grandma left her inheritance. Guess who never got told about it? The room fell silent. Mom's face drained of color. That wasn't your business, she snapped. Wasn't my business? I stepped closer. You used my money for your vacations, your new car, your renovations. And you call my education, my grandmother's gift, none of my business? The silence cracked like thunder. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dad's voice came low and cold. Watch your tone. My hands shook, but my voice didn't. I spent years watching everything. Watching you lie, watching you use guilt as a leash. I'm done! Mom stood up, fury flashing in her eyes. You ungrateful child? No, I interrupted, my voice breaking but strong. You don't get to call me that anymore. The words hung heavy in the air. Everyone froze. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like their daughter. I felt like my own person. My heartbeat echoed in my ears, each thud a reminder that this moment was real, irreversible. I turned toward the door. Behind me, Mom's voice trembled with something close to desperation. If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. That's the point, I said quietly. Then I opened it and stepped into the rain. The sky was dark, the kind of dark that holds thunder. But for the first time, the storm didn't scare me. It felt like cleansing. I walked to my car without looking back, rain soaking through my coat, washing the last traces of obedience from my skin. My phone buzzed in my pocket again and again, but I didn't answer. I already knew what the messages would say. Guilt, threats, pleas. None of it mattered anymore. I'd seen the truth, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. As I drove away, the house disappeared in my rearview mirror, swallowed by the mist. A part of me wanted to cry, not for them, but for the version of myself that had lived so long believing love meant servitude. But no tears came, only a strange electric calm, the kind that comes before something breaks open. I didn't know what would happen next, whether they'd cut me off, smear my name, or try another round of emotional warfare. All I knew was this: the next time they came for me, I'd be ready, because this time I wasn't running. I was reclaiming. And as lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the wet road ahead, my phone lit up once more, not with my mother's name, but with Lila's. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen as it rang, her name glowing through the rain. I hesitated, breath trembling, then reached for it, and what she said next changed everything. Lila's voice was shaking on the other end of the line, thin and trembling like she'd been crying for hours. "Hannah, please don't hang up," she whispered before I could say a word. The rain outside softened to a mist, tapping gently against the car roof as if the world itself was holding its breath. "I'm not going to hang up," I said quietly. "What's going on?" There was a long pause, broken only by her sniffles. "They told me not to call you," she said. "Mom said you'd try to poison me against them, that you've changed." I exhaled slowly, steadying my voice. "I did change, Lila, I had to, but not the way she means." She hesitated. "I know, that's why I'm calling. I found something." Her words landed like small explosions, one by one. "Something you need to see." My grip on the steering wheel tightened. "What is it?" I asked. "It's about Grandma's inheritance. About you." My heart stopped. "Where are you?" "At home," she said, voice cracking. "They're asleep. Can you come?" Every rational part of me screamed no, that going back was walking into the fire I'd just escaped. But something in her voice, that fragile mix of fear and truth, pulled me in. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, and hung up before doubt could change my mind. The drive back felt longer than it was. The streets were slick with rain, streetlights reflecting off puddles like fragments of memory I couldn't escape. My mind replayed every word from that family meeting, the coldness in Dad's voice, the rage in Mom's eyes, the stunned silence of my aunts. and for the first time, none of it hurt. It only clarified. The more they showed me who they were, the more I understood what I wasn't anymore. When I reached the house, it stood in darkness except for a faint glow in Lila's upstairs window. I parked down the street, heart hammering. The porch light was off, the front door unlocked. Careless, or maybe trusting that no one would dare come here in the middle of the night. I slipped inside, my footsteps soft on the wooden floor that still creaked in the same spots it did when I was 16. Lila met me halfway down the stairs, her hair messy, her eyes swollen. She looked younger than I remembered, fragile in a way that made me ache. "Come upstairs," she whispered. I followed her to her room, once painted in soft lavender, now filled with travel posters, makeup palettes, and half-packed suitcases. She closed the door and turned to face me, hands trembling as she held out an envelope. "I found this in Mom's desk," she said. "It's from Grandma's lawyer." I took it, the paper soft from age and handling. My name was written on the front in Grandma Wallace's looping script. For a moment, my breath caught in my throat. I tore it open carefully, the scent of old paper and dust rising like ghosts. Inside was a letter. "My dearest Hannah," it began. "I wanted to make sure you have something that's truly yours. You've always given so much to everyone else, and I need you to know I see you. The enclosed check is for your future, for whatever dream you choose. Don't let anyone tell you you're selfish for using it on yourself. Love, Grandma." Tears blurred the words. Lila's voice broke the silence. "They never told you," she whispered. "They used it to pay for Dad's business debt and part of the kitchen renovation. Mom said you'd understand." I couldn't move. The air felt heavy, pressing down on me until it hurt to breathe. "How long have you known?" I asked. "A few weeks," she admitted, guilt flickering across her face. "I didn't say anything because they told me you'd get angry, that you might stop helping." I laughed bitterly, the sound hollow. They were right about one thing. "I am angry." Lila's lip quivered. "I'm sorry, Hannah. I didn't know what to believe anymore." I reached for her hand. "You believe what you see now. You see what they've done." Her eyes filled with tears again. "They're not who I thought they were." I nodded, swallowing the ache in my chest. "Neither are we. We're not their victims anymore." Suddenly, footsteps creaked in the hallway. My pulse spiked. Lila froze. The doorknob twisted slowly, and Mom's voice came from the other side, sharp and cold. "Lila, why are you awake?" She didn't wait for an answer before the door opened. When she saw me standing there, holding the letter, her face went white. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "You have no right to be in this house." I held up the letter, my hand steady. "You stole this from me." Her eyes flashed, but she quickly masked it with a brittle smile. "That money was family money. Your grandmother wanted to help all of us." "Then why didn't she write family on the envelope?" I asked, voice low and trembling with fury. "She wrote my name, Mom." Dad appeared in the doorway behind her, his robe half-tied, his expression unreadable. "It's late," he said. "Let's discuss this calmly." But calm was long gone. "You lied to me," I said, stepping closer. "You let me think you were struggling while using my inheritance to fund vacations and granite countertops." Mom's mask cracked. "We did what was necessary. You wouldn't understand the sacrifices we made raising you." Sacrifices. My voice rose, trembling with years of buried rage. "You mean taking my paycheck when I was 17? Making me feel guilty for going to college? Or pretending I was selfish for wanting a life that didn't revolve around fixing yours?" Dad's tone hardened. "Watch yourself, Hannah." But the warning no longer held power. "No," I said. "You watch me, because I'm done being silent." I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder I'd brought. Copies of every transfer, every check, every record of what I'd sent them over the years. "You think you can rewrite history, but I kept receipts. Literally." I threw the folder onto the bed. Papers scattered like snow across the room. Lila gasped softly. Mom's voice shook, somewhere between fury and fear. "You don't know what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said. "I'm taking back what's mine. Not just the money, but my peace, my dignity, my freedom. The room fell into silence. Only the rain filled the space, steady and relentless. Lila moved closer to me, her small frame trembling, but her voice steady. "She's right, Mom," she said quietly. "You can't keep doing this!" Mom turned on her, eyes blazing. "Don't you start, young lady." "No," Lila snapped, louder this time. "You lied to both of us. Grandma trusted you, and you took advantage of it." The look on Mom's face, shock, then disbelief, then something like fear, was the first crack I'd ever seen in her armor. "You don't talk to me like that," she whispered. But Lila didn't back down. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before stealing from your own daughter." Dad's voice broke through, low but seething. "This conversation is over. You'll regret bringing this up, Hannah. We can make sure of it." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You've already made sure of everything, haven't you? My guilt, my silence, my obedience. But you don't get to make sure of me anymore." His jaw clenched. "You're not welcome in this house." "Good," I said, my voice calm now. "Because I don't belong here anymore." I turned toward Lila. "You don't either. Not until they learn what love without control looks like." Lila's eyes filled again, but this time there was strength beneath the tears. She nodded. "I'm coming with you." Mom's scream echoed through the hall. "Over my dead body!" she shouted. "You're not taking her!" But Lila had already grabbed her coat, already moving. "You don't get to own me, Mom!" she cried. For a moment, everything was chaos. Voices clashing, footsteps pounding, my father's hand slamming against the wall. Then we were out the door, the cold air biting our faces, the storm swallowing our breath. We ran to the car, hearts racing, adrenaline turning fear into clarity. When the doors shut and the sound of the rain drowned out their shouting, Lila broke into sobs. I reached across the seat and squeezed her hand. "It's over," I said softly. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It's beginning." We drove in silence, the city lights breaking through the fog ahead. For the first time, Lila looked at me not like a sister she depended on, but like a woman she could learn from. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. I smiled faintly. "Live, without apologizing for it." She nodded slowly, absorbing the words. "Do you hate them?" I thought for a long time. "No," I said finally. "I just don't owe them anymore." The following week, I sat in my office, sunlight spilling through the tall windows. My phone buzzed constantly, missed calls, messages from relatives, even one from Dad that simply said, "You'll regret this." I deleted it without opening. Marcus entered quietly, holding 2 coffees, just like the day before the storm began. "You okay?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked, and realized I finally was. "Yeah," I said, "better than I've ever been." He smiled, setting the cup beside me. "Then it's time you told your story," he said. And maybe he was right. Maybe silence had been my cage for too long. That evening, I opened my laptop and began typing, not an email, not an apology, but the truth. I wrote about manipulation disguised as love, about boundaries mistaken for betrayal, about learning that peace is something you build, not beg for. I didn't name names, but the story was mine in every heartbeat of it. I posted it anonymously under the title, "What Happens When the Family ATM Stops Working." I expected nothing. But by morning, thousands had read it. Comments flooded. Strangers who saw themselves in my story, who thanked me for saying what they couldn't. For the first time, my pain became something more than memory. It became power. Weeks passed. The silence from my parents became its own kind of noise, loud but distant. Then one day, a letter arrived at my office. No return address, just my name. Inside was a check for exactly the amount Grandma had left me, down to the cent. No note, no apology. Just the money. I stared at it for a long time, then tore it neatly in half, because I didn't need it anymore. I'd already taken back what mattered most. That night, I stood by my window, the Seattle skyline stretching wide and golden. The city hummed below, alive, unapologetic, free. I thought about Grandma, about her letter, about the version of me who once believed love had to be earned. And then I whispered into the glass, "I'm done earning." For the first time, the words didn't hurt. They healed. Behind me, my phone buzzed with a new message. From Lila. "Just got my first scholarship check. Thanks for believing in me. I love you." I smiled, tears blurring the city lights. Maybe some bonds survive the fire. Maybe some are reborn through it. Either way, I finally understood. Freedom isn't walking away. It's walking toward yourself. And as dawn broke over Seattle, lighting the sky in pale gold, I whispered the only truth that mattered now. I made it. The girl who once begged for love had finally become the woman who didn't need permission to exist.